Now live, this is Football at 4.
Embigoni's back. He steps up. He looks. He is firing deep. He wants Smith. He's got a touchdown! Pickett to DeVontaSmith. 21 yards.
Oh, KennyPickett, baby, balling out. Or Danny Tanner, a.k.a. Tanner McKee. Welcome back, Sports Bash 97.3 ESPN. It's time. Football at 4. Ryan and Nick hanging with you, PG on site as well. Josh back in the studio. Football at 4. Geoff Mosher joins us inside the birds. We have a lot to discuss here with Moshe as we got a little bit sidetracked, but it was a good debate with that playoff format. I'm going to start this with Geoff Mosher. Let's get a little nuts here. Let's get a little weird. I want Mosher's opinion. As we welcome you in, Geoff, we appreciate you as always, my friend. So I brought this up. I was looking at the standings in the NFC, and I was like, man, it make sense how the loser of the Lions and the Vikings will end up as a 5 seed and have to go on the road, and a division winner, even though they stink and they're not as good of a team, is going to get a home playoff game. I said that needs to change. Do you agree or disagree?
You know what? I don't. I don't agree. I feel like there's no perfect situation, Ryan. And I think the way the NFL season is structured, the rivalries, like you should be rewarded for winning your division, even if there's a wild card team that is better than you. And it's been like this for a while. It's just, I think this is a very unique year where you have 2 of the 3 wild card teams that might be favorite in the first round on the road, right? And a unique year in which 2 of the 3 wild card teams are going to win like 12 games, 13 games. You don't really see that very often. So I wouldn't want to change everything up because of the uniqueness of the schedule. And I've always thought that the NFL is one of the few leagues that kind of does it the right way as far as reseeding after the first round to make sure that the number 1 seed is definitely going to play the lowest seed. If you think about the way college football works or college basketball, it doesn't work that way. You got to play whoever is in your bracket, and it doesn't matter what upsets happen along the way. So I like the NFL. I can understand the opinion to the other. I mean, we've seen it lately. Just a couple of years ago, when Washington won the division as a 7-9 team, right, with Tyler Heineke, and then Tampa went up there, won a first round game, and I think they won. That's the year they won the Super Bowl, if I'm not mistaken, with Tom Brady.
Yeah.
So I guess my point is if you're the better team, you're probably going to win anyway, even if you're on the road, because of the NFL and professional ranks, it's usually how it works. So I wouldn't change the NFL playoffs. In fact, I would argue, maybe you guys have talked about this, that given the current circumstance of JalenHurts being out with the concussion and not playing the season finale, that this revised format has helped the Eagles, because in the past, the number 2 seed would have a first round bye also, right? So maybe it gives him a little extra time. Maybe somebody would argue the other. I said the other way. Maybe it hurts because now he's doesn't get the extra rest. He has to play in the first round. But I think the fact that he has to play in the first round and you don't get 3 straight weeks off for Jalen or the rest of the offense is a good thing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think PG brought this up earlier with the fact of, are we worried that JalenHurts might have too much rust and cobwebs to shake off for when the playoffs actually roll around and begin? I don't know. I look at yesterday as it relates to that, Geoff Mosher, as a positive and sort of a sigh of relief for me, because you go into that game, no JalenHurts, and it just brought back AJ Feely and Detmer and Garcia vibes with me, where it's like, throw Mosher, under center, and this team's going to roll, right? Like it almost rejuvenized the locker room. There's just a lot of positive takeaways where you play a 2nd and 3rd string QB yesterday and it's no problem. So, how did you look at all that and just yesterday, big picture in general?
Yeah, no, I think that it was, I'm trying to take into account that the Cowboys are terrible, but the Eagles had to battle adversity. It was a 7-7 game, and it actually wasn't Cooper Rush's fault. Mingo beats Mitchell down the left side and sort of drifts away from the sideline and doesn't find that ball, right? And it goes incomplete, or else that's a touchdown. It's 14-7, and then maybe things are different. But I doubt it. I just, that might have been a little early momentum for Dallas. But I do think it's good that you saw Kenny Pickett get in there and fight through broken ribs and make some decent throws. And, of course, you see Tanner McKee get in there. And really, to be honest with you, it looked like a normal Eagles win because all year long the Eagles passing game has sort of been inconsistent, been big play driven. And then the second half has always been where Saquon Barkley has taken over. And that's exactly what happened in this game as well. In fact, Saquon Barkley's second half rushing stats are like third best alone in the NFL. So that was a good way to close it out. Always good to beat the Cowboys. And I think now you just look forward, and I'm sure this will be a good topic for the next week or two, is I don't know what's a better matchup for the Eagles, whether it's the Commanders or the Packers, because watching the Commanders gut out games and how difficult it is to stop Jaden Daniels on third down whenever you've done something right, I don't know if I want to see that in the first round again.
No, I would like to avoid that. I'm with you personally. If we can avoid that, I wouldn't hate it. Mosher, we buried the lead just because we went a different route to start. But I'll get to the question the entire Eagles world is discussing and debating is to play or not to play. It's tough. I think it's tough, and it's also very simple and obvious, right? It's like, let's not be stupid here. There's a million reasons that make sense for him not to play, but man, this is something special. This is a record that's been held since 1984, and if it's not Saquon, personally, I don't see this record ever being broken, right? Like, you have a unique opportunity. It is the Giants, as Earnshaw brought up earlier, right? So how does Geoff Mosher look at this debate?
Yeah, so I've tried not to be like, I'm planting my flag here, and I'm right.
No, just do it, Moshe.
No,
just go for it.
I'm not going to do that because I honestly have gone back and forth on it myself. I think that you made the correct statement, Ryan, that it just doesn't make sense from a practical standpoint to play Saquon Barkley and risk getting him hurt, right? But I do think that there are some records in sports that are worth going for. There are some immortal records that when you stand atop that mountain, you are, for whether it's Triple Crown, Miguel Cabrera, the last person I think to do it in baseball, like I'll never forget that. And whoever thinks about the Detroit Tigers or Miguel Cabrera, right? But so I do think that there are certain records that are so special. I always wanted the Colts to chase it when they were, flirted with undefeated seasons a couple of years with Peyton Manning.
Patriots too. And they went for it.
Yeah, they did go for it.
I agree with you. Yeah, sorry,
I actually, to be honest with you guys, I would have kept Saquon in the game longer against the Cowboys to make it easier for next week, or even maybe get it the way things were going in that game.
31 carries is tough. I mean, that's a pitch count type of thing. But I don't know. I tend to agree.
Right.
Right. I don't know, but I think you hit the nail on the head, which is what makes everyone sort of stuck on this, which is some records are just, I don't want to say they're equivalent to a Super Bowl. Nothing's equivalent to a Super Bowl, especially here in Philadelphia. No, okay? But my goodness, like a record like that it's as close as you can get. Like, if you don't get this record, then you better bring home a Super Bowl banner this year. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. Now, I was talking with Jason Avant and Quentin Michael today. They do the Q&A pod on Inside the Birds that'll be out tomorrow morning, and they discussed this. So I'll give a little tease. And I think Jason made a really good point. The NFL is going to go to 18 games a couple of years, and standing atop that mountain for Saquon probably not going to be that long of it. It's probably not going to last 40 years like Eric Dickerson's. It might, but it might not. Yeah. Especially, you're going to have Ashton Genty come into this league. You're going to have the teams are running again. You've got Shanahan offenses all over the place. Bijan Robinson has had an amazing year. So if I could look into a crystal ball and say, like, in 8 years, Saquon Barkley is going to be number 2, I'd say forget about it. It's pretty cool being in the 2000 club. So I do wonder if in the end it'll all be worth it just for a short stint atop the mountain.
Moshe, we were talking about it today. Like, they pulled him early yesterday in the fourth quarter. Like, he was done. And once he got to 2K, it was over. Do you think that's kind of where this team is leading? Like, 2K was the benchmark, and that's it? And it's kind of a precursor of what's going to happen in this next game?
So judging, Nick, by the words from the team after the game, Saquon certainly seemed very diplomatic about it. He was not lobbying very hard. Nick Sirianni gave his typical "we'll see," and Nick always tends to do things that are better for the team than the individual. And then the offensive lineman sort of made a point to say, hey, our goal was the 2K club. That's special. We saw. So it almost made it seem like they felt like they got him to the mountaintop. Maybe not the top of the mountain, but, that smaller peak that only few have ventured to, and they're pretty cool and happy about that. I think that they would be okay with it. Obviously, linemen, Barkley were playing and going for it, but I also sensed that they would be okay with not doing it for the betterment of the team. And I think that will go over. I think that will help influence Nick Sirianni most likely to not play Saquon.
I also wanted to ask you, I know you and Kaplan were talking about it on the postgame show last night regarding Jay Glazer's report about Tanner McKee getting first-team snaps as well. It comes out after that he had the broken ribs. He was playing through the broken ribs. Kenny Pickett was. What did you make of Tanner McKee getting some snaps yesterday? And it seemed like they were very prepared that he may step into that role.
I think it was a really smart decision. Obviously with Kenny Pickett and the rib injury, they knew that they were sort of playing with fire. If he took a couple of hits, it was probably going to get aggravated, and they might have to get Tanner McKee in that game anyway. So even though you hate to, especially for a backup trying to start, you hate to take snaps away, I think that they felt like they needed to do it, and it was a really smart decision to do it and just get him some work, as much rhythm as he could get with the starting unit. And even though his first pass was a little shaky, I thought he did throw some. I thought as the game went on, and he did have to throw the rare, what do you throw, like 5 passes? I do think he gave some opportunities there for the receivers to get yards after the catch. I'm kind of excited about McKee's future as a backup. Everything we've seen from him has been pretty good in the preseason, and I'm really curious to see what happens next year because Pickett's under contract, and you traded a third-round pick for him, and he should be your backup, but how long are you going to go with Tanner McKee looking like a promising backup before you have to make a decision on him? Next year will be year 3 for him, so it'll be interesting to see how it all works out.
Moshe, I wanted to switch gears and go to the defensive side of the ball. Another 4 turnovers yesterday. What's that, Moshe?
I haven't talked to you in like 5 years, brother. How you been, man?
I'm good, man. How are you?
Who cares about PG? Come on.
I know. He's like, let's get these pleasantries out of the way.
Yeah.
I got a defensive question.
Yes. This defense, 4 turnovers yesterday. The first quarter, I guess they Dallas kind of answered that pick 6 with a long drive of their own. But, another 4 turnovers forced. Is this defense ready to face the Detroits of the world, the Minnesotas of the world? I know the pass rush still isn't there, right? Only 1 sack yesterday, I think. But in your opinion, is this defense Super Bowl ready?
And the youth.
I think it's as ready as it can be, Pete. I think I'm pretty convinced now, it only took me 17 out of 18 weeks to realize that there are a couple of teams, Lions, the way the Vikings are playing and the weaponry they have, and I'll put the Eagles in that category as well, maybe even the Bills, that I don't care what defense they're facing, they're going to score points. I think the Eagles could score points against any defense. I think the Bills can. I think the Lions can because they're just all so balanced. Offensively, they have so much firepower. And, in the case of Josh Allen or Jaden Daniels and the Eagles with Hurts, you can play perfect defense and they can burn you because they can move around with their legs as we've seen. So I think the Eagles defense is ready to compete, but I don't think the Eagles are going to be winning any games 13-7 in the playoffs. I don't think the Eagles defense fairly can be asked to hold the Lions or the Vikings or the Bills or the Chiefs under 20 points. If they do, that's great. Maybe you force some turnovers like you were just talking about, PG. But until the last 2 weeks, the Eagles averaged like 1.5 turnovers a game. They weren't exactly a quote-unquote takeaway defense like we've seen from some defenses in the past. And I do worry a little bit about the pass rush. They've at times been dominant, but these last 2 games, only 2 sacks. One was kind of a garbage time one by Trotter, losing Brandon Graham. Bryce Huff is in and out. They're really only rushing the passer with 3 guys on the edge. And they're all doing nicely, but they're all no one's a TJ Watt, right? So I think in the playoffs that could be a concern.
I talked to Grayson about this, about the fight yesterday in the tunnel. Sidney Brown gets ejected. That's now 3 times in the last 3 weeks. We've had, some skirmishes, some ejections. But can you talk about the edge that this defense is playing with? Is this something that they were missing last season? Can you point your finger as to kind of where this came from? Did it just happen organically, or is Sirianni and his antics, is that kind of behind it? In your opinion, where is this edge and this kind of physicality, I guess you can call it, and intensity coming from?
I wouldn't say last year's defense was missing an edge more so than a clue.
They were missing CJ GJ.
They were.
Vic.
That's true. They were missing a turnover creator, but they in order to create turnovers, you have to be within the vicinity of players, and there were too many times last year that wide receivers were just wide open, tight ends were wide open, and even when they hit quarterbacks, they didn't really cause too many fumbles. So this year, yeah, they have an edge, they have a tenacity to them. I like that definitely. I will say though, yesterday kind of opened my eyes a little bit in that, and I get Sidney Brown got blocked to the ground. It's Cowboys, Eagles, but this is like the second or third time that he's he hasn't been ejected, but that was the first for him, but he's been flagged for personal fouls. Jalen Carter's been flagged for personal fouls. CJ Gardner has been flagged for personal fouls. The head coach, as you mentioned, likes to talk to players, likes to talk to coaches, likes to talk to fans. This is not a team. Yeah. This is not a team, that I would tell you is the model of composure. And in the playoffs, you got to be. And I would worry a little bit about that. Sidney Brown's showing he's a little bit of a hothead. We know Jalen Carter is, and we know that C.J. Gardner-Johnson has a reputation. So it's not that I think these guys are all going to lose their mind. What I'm worried about is that they're all marked by referees, right? They're all marked targets now. And they're going to get calls where maybe they're gray area calls or bang calls, and then they're going to get flagged for it. And then that's going to force them to get even more agitated, and who knows what could happen from there.
Is it going overboard in your eyes? I
think a little bit. And it's tough to be Nick Sirianni and be the guy to tell everybody to calm down when you're a hothead yourself.
Right.
So, he went after JalenHurts on the sideline just a week ago.
He's going after anybody.
Jalen Carter is what, yeah. It's a little too much right now. It just needs to relax. The teams that win are the teams that not only play the best football, but also can stay composed and be like more like JalenHurts than Jalen Carter or Nick Sirianni. And I think that's where not having Brandon Graham on the field maybe hurts them a little bit.
Good point. We're talking with Geoff Mosher, Football at 4, Inside the Birds. Make sure you check out everything Inside the Birds are putting out there. I agree with you. Sirianni's middle name is too much. It's like Nick too much Sirianni, do less. But I'm on the extreme side of that fence. I digress. I wanted to touch on quickly. We only have a short couple minutes here left with you, Mosher. But the point that PG brings up with the defense, what about the youth? Right? Do you look at the rookies out in the secondary, that youth and maybe ignorance, lack of playoff experience is a better way to put it, a pro, a con, or neither?
Both. The only con is that when you go up against some experienced quarterback, experienced coordinators, they're going to try to take advantage of what they see on film from a player who hasn't seen everything. And I do think there might be a trend forming here. Teams are trying to go deep on Quinyon Mitchell on third down because they're seeing him play a certain leverage. They know he's expecting, hey, we're going to send pressure. They're expecting an in-breaking route, a real quick hitter, but they hold on to the ball an extra second and try to throw it down the sideline. So that's where the youth comes in as a little bit of a con, but there's so much more pro, Ryan, I think, in that. First of all, they're just dynamic athletes. And the big difference between last year's secondary and this year's is not only do they have a clue, but they are so fast. They're so dynamic. Did you guys see how fast Cooper DeJean ran back with that interception with C.J. Gardner-Johnson?
He was stride for stride with him, yeah.
There's no question. They click, they close, they pursue, they tackle. This even the linebackers so much better because of that youth and because they're young and dynamic compared to last year with Bradbury and the safety Byard and Zach Cunningham. It was starting to get like the Bradley Roby. It was starting to get like the AARP team out there. So it was rough. So I do think that youthful energy and the fact that these guys are hungry and they listen to their coaches really does help them immeasurably. I think it's been a huge impact on this team.
All right, we'll end with this, Mosher. We appreciate your time. I know this is coming from the hot take world, and certainly have to take this with a grain of salt, but I saw Dan Orlovsky earlier when they were discussing on ESPN Bills and Eagles as a scary team. Pick one. They brought up Josh Allen, and they said Josh Allen over Jalen Hurts and the Eagles because they've seen Josh Allen, quote, go nuclear. He can sort of take over games, win games, put the team on their back. He's a Superman type of a quarterback, where Jalen Hurts is excellent, really good. Not an indictment on him, but he doesn't really have that in him. We haven't seen him do that. Is that fair or foul, or is that something that can be a concern potentially? Maybe in a big playoff game, we need Jalen Hurts to be Superman, and we don't know if he can be?
That's a tough one. I mean, no matter how you answer it, someone's going to say but, right? Like, you could say Orlovsky's correct that Josh Allen has played better than any quarterback in the league this year and has put his team on his back more than any other quarterback, given what he's got to work with. But then someone could say, yeah, well, 2 years ago, Jalen Hurts went toe-to-toe with Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl on the biggest stage and looked like the best player on the field that day. So it's not that Jalen Hurts cannot do it. I would say he hasn't had that many moments like that as much as you would hope for over the last 2 years. And now he's surrounded by a lot of talent, and that's not a knock, but he is. And I think this year, Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson have been the two best quarterbacks in the league and have done as much as they could do for their teams. And, you know, they're rightly the MVP frontrunners, and whichever one win it, I wouldn't have an issue with either one. But to the spirit of the question, I think that it wouldn't shock me if Jalen Hurts could will his team to a win. It wouldn't shock me if the Eagles lost and he had a really rough day passing, because we've seen that. We've seen him have some rough days passing this year and going back to last year.
Real quick on that topic, Mosher, with all things healthy and everything's equal, is the recipe for success in this football team still running the ball, playing 100%. Defense, not asking Jalen to do Josh Allen things?
Yeah, 100%. No doubt about it.
Yeah.
And you know, part of the reason Josh Allen has to do Josh Allen things is because, A, it's in his nature. I mean, you got to remember, this guy runs faster than Jalen Hurts, and he's like bigger than Jalen Hurts, and he has an arm that everybody in the league. I mean, he's sort of like if you were building a quarterback.
Build a bear quarterback, yeah.
Right, like that's
weird
what you want, all of those traits and qualities. So, and he doesn't have AJBrown and
right.
DeVontaSmith. He doesn't have Saquon Barkley. He has good weapons, but he doesn't have A-list players at each position. Khalil Shakir's a nice player. Kincaid's a nice player. Davis is a good running back, but it's not the same, right? So he's been asked to do more. The Eagles, in order for them to win, they can win in a pass game. We saw that against the Steelers, but the bread and butter for them this year will be the running game and Saquon Barkley and playing defense. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like oftentimes people use the loaded roster that Jalen Hurts has been blessed with as an indictment, and it's just not fair. But
no, it's just facts. I mean, he's got a loaded roster. Yeah.
Is what it is. Geoff Mosher is the man. Similar to Josh Allen. If we could build a bear guest-wise, I think Mosher would be it. We appreciate you, my friend. InsideTheBirds.com. I tried there. I failed. InsideTheBirds.com. Subscribe. Follow everything they have going on. We appreciate you, man.
Appreciate you guys. Have a happy new year. Talk to you next year.